Okay, I started a little bit early because, yeah, still trying to, that'll work. Still trying to figure out exactly what I'm doing here. I have not really used the YouTube live streaming interface before, and so I'm trying to figure it out. Hopefully, people will actually get a chance to see this. Maybe, maybe not. I also apologize for the lousy quality of my audio. I dropped my nice little lav mic into tea, and for a little while it kept working, and then it did not. And now that it's not working anymore, like it just started making this hideous feedback screeching noise, apparently. I couldn't hear it, but other people could, and it was awful. So, I have a new mic on order. It's not here yet, though. So I'm working on this lovely illustration for the Y Faith comic anthology. I drew it all a little while ago. I've put down some base colors in the background with watercolor to just kind of give it a coat to base everything onto. And can you hear me, microphone? Are you hearing me? Yeah, are you hearing me? Kind of, sort of. So, yeah. Now, I'm going to continue on. What I'm doing next is these lovely things. The Inktense water-soluble ink pencils. Colored pencils is what I'm putting down right now. And then I'm going to dissolve them with some water, which I've already put down a layer back here, so you can kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to do some of that now. So you draw on them just like the regular colored pencils. And then you hit them with a little bit of water, and they dissolve, and they get nice and really saturated and nice coverage. They don't take as much water or as much scrubbing around as the water-soluble colored pencils do. They also are permanent once they dry, unlike the water-soluble colored pencils where if you hit them with water, they become malleable again and you can still blend them. Once this dries, it's done. So it really informs the way that you have to use them, because once it's on there, it's on there, which is why I'm doing the dark background between the leaves first, so that I don't accidentally smoosh over the leaves later. It's kind of different. Somebody's watching. Hello, whoever's lurking. Feel free to say hi. I will talk to you if you leave comments. I am glancing over at my screen occasionally. So the color that's on there right now is a combination of like an olivey green, navy blue, and dark brown. It's coming out into this nice kind of olive drab color. I'm trying to keep those lines nice and sharp for the outlines of the leaves and everything later. Oh, mosquito. You may be able to see that mosquito that is buzzing around and pestering me. They're wicked bad right now. And every time you open the front door, like 12 of them get in here, no matter how fast you are. Please don't bite me, Mr. Mosquito. I'm trying to work. I do want to make sure that I get all of this background color wet and used so that it's locked down, because if I don't get it on this pass, when I'm going to try to do like these little leaves in here and I hit it with water, then it'll activate and it'll ruin the color that I'm working on in there. So I have to make sure we get it all nice and dissolved now where I want it to be so that it doesn't make problems later. Scoot over a little bit here. Hey! Oh, hey, Jack. Perfect. So glad that you're able to join me. I'm hoping to have this done in the next couple of days so that we can use it to help promote the anthology. Jack is the one who is curating and editing and publishing the anthology. And it only has a week left. It's on an Indiegogo campaign, so it'll still exist even if they don't get all the goal that they would like. It'll still get printed one way or the other, but more money would make it better, as is usually the case with these kinds of things. More would be preferable. I put a link to the Indiegogo campaign in the description for this video, so you should definitely check it out. I read several of the stories that are in it, short stories that are in it for in like a preview PDF that Jack sent out, and they're really good. Bunch of different comic stories talking about faith in lots of different ways, not just in organized religion, although that's part of it, but also just, faith in each other, faith in yourself, like all different kind of iterations on that theme. And it's a pretty crazy amount of talent that's working on the project. So definitely something you want to be in on. And I have this taped down to try to minimize the warping of this paper. It's not watercolor paper, it's a heavy Bristol, and it does all right under the abuse of the wet media, but since it's not watercolor paper, it will buckle a little bit, and just taping it down just kind of helps keep it from getting a little too unruly on me. But so you're lucky it's taped down, so I can't whip the page around like I normally do when I'm working and make you all seasick. You're welcome. coming back over to this side. This is like mirrored on my computer screen and it's really freaking me out. It probably is coming out. It's probably broadcasting the way it's supposed to, but YouTube, I think, flips things so that if you're like looking at yourself, you don't feel weirded out because you're seeing yourself the way you would in a mirror. But it freaks me out when I'm looking at my hand drawing something. It's not where it's supposed to be. Wow, that was really loud. Thanks for that. There. Speaker I didn't realize was on. I'm going to turn you off. Of course, I'm not even positive that my mic is picking me up. Do you hear me? Since I haven't done this before, I don't know if I didn't accidentally check a box somewhere and mess everything up. For the amount of time that you've seen me on YouTube, I'm never in control of it. I'm always on somebody else's channel or somebody else's stream that they've started, and I just show up. They give me a link and I show up. I haven't actually controlled any of this before, so this is a learning process. Eventually, I'll get this synced up with other services or other social media accounts so that you don't have to necessarily come to YouTube if you don't want to, but I'm getting there. I'm not much of a social media guru. I really just try to do my best to keep up. Hence why I'm doing this on a piece of paper instead of on the computer screen. All right, get some variation down in here. And if you don't want it all to like blend together and make one big muddy mess, then it's a good idea to kind of do a dark area, let it set for a second, and then go back in and do a light area on top of it. As a general rule of thumb with the Inktense, because it sets and does not move after you do it, it's always a good idea, or at least I always find it a good idea, to work from your darks first so that you can control those better and they don't overpower your light. Because if your light goes and scoots on top of your dark, then it's not really a big deal. It's not gonna hurt it. That wasn't fully dry yet, but you can see already that that's holding its shape pretty well. Oh, okay. It is showing up the right way. Yes, I am right-handed. Thank you, Jack, for that confirmation. It just looks backwards on my screen. Yeah, but anyway, if you go over an area that's dark, that one you can see really well. That I let dry for a second, so you can see that those little dark bits that I already did won't move when I go back over them with the water. So that's why you want to do your dark areas first and then go over it with your light, because your light's not really going to ruin your dark areas. Because if you do your light first and then you accidentally scoot over it with the dark, then your dark will end up on top of the light and ruin whatever you were going for. We don't want that. All right, I've got one more little section over here I'm going to work on, and then I'm going to go back over in some of this with the actual pencils. You can see some of that process too. This whole process, I usually do a lot of back and forth, partially to help control the areas that are getting wet. Oh yeah, I've got dark down here. I want to do little leaf litter piles on the forest floor. And I will readily admit that part of this is because I'm not a really great watercolor painter. Watercolor's never really been my best medium. I've always struggled with watercolor. Just struggled with control. And I'm sure I could get better at it if I invested a lot of time in it, but most of the time I'm doing stuff that's not watercolor. So I had used the water-soluble colored pencils for many years, and then when I discovered the Inktense pencils, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want. This is giving me just what I want. The extra level of control with having them set once they dry was just like, okay, this I can work with. And I just really love how vibrant the colors are. I'm working with a very muted palette on a lot of this, but it's going to get a lot more vibrant as we get into more of the foreground. Because so far, all I have wet here is background. All right. Excuse me. Sorry, I have some sort of terrible cough. Okay, let's put this down. Oh, this is so distracting trying to do this backwards. All right, I'm going to work up in this corner over here. I'm going to work on some of this mistletoe. I need to sharpen my pencils. Okay. So up in the corner here, I've got a little clump of mistletoe that's hanging out in this oak tree. Mistletoe is a pretty bright green. So I'm going to put some of that bright green in first. Not too much though, because this bright green is very, very vibrant. I don't want it to be neon when I'm done with it. Those little terminal buds are actually pretty light colored though. So. Do a little layer of this. What's this other green I'm going to use? What's this one? Field green, whatever that means. There's a pretty good range of these colors available. Not as many as like your, you know, all the colored pencil colors that are available. But realistically, as with anything, you're probably going to latch on to just a small number that you really find work for your own personal color sense and the way you like to mix colors. So limited palette is fine. I realized though I don't have a purple. I mean, I know I can mix purple, but sometimes it's nice to not have to. Get a sense for the whole process here. All right, I think I got everything there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, I'm gonna use that dark blue, which I just like to use to push everything back. It's called Deep Indigo. I use this one a lot, and it needs to be sharpened. It's kind of dull. Pardon me for a moment while I do that. And while I squash a mosquito that was bugging around my desk. I use this Deep Indigo quite a bit as a shadow to just kind of push things back. So some of these little branches and leaves that are further back, I'm just going to give a little hit of that just to help create this illusion of depth we're going for here. This is a lot of plant shapes I find actually really challenging because they're just so complex, and this piece is very complex and fairly challenging. But I'm really pleased with how it's coming out so far. Hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully I don't get to the end of it and just go, oh no, what did I do? Let's see. Now I'm going to use this, whoops, throwing stuff off my desk. Mustard. I don't know if you can read that. Is that better? Mustard. buds on the end are kind of a yellowy color. We'll use that to also add to some of those darker stems and leaves in the back. Push them back a little bit. Some of these little end buds more yellow. Let's see, did I miss any? Yeah, there's one. All right. A little bit of yellow on those buds as well. Oh my gosh, there's a mosquito like right in my ear. Go away. Seriously, get lost, mosquito. Okay, and the berries are white. I'm gonna try to actually get my eraser, my lovely squishy kneaded eraser, which is artist tool and stress ball all in one. Pick up a little bit of the pencil there so that that's not, just very lightly kind of pick up some of the pencil. All right, and then just use back here this dark brown. It's called bark, and just do the tiniest little circle because that one tiny little bit of that brown color, it can go a long way. To use a tiny little brush on that, because I would like the berries to remain looking white. And tiniest bit of other color on here. Tiny bit of pink to contrast them against all the green that's all around them. Hopefully that works. We'll find out. We'll find out. All right, I'm going to use an itty bitty brush to dissolve the ink this time. Where are you? Oh, it's very worn off. I've had this one for a long time. It's an Escoda Kolinsky #1. The Escoda brushes, I tried them. They weren't really my favorite, but I've saved this little guy for doing details on water-based media pieces like this, and I also use it for whiteout all the time. So there might be a little bit of white still hanging out in it, some white gouache hanging out in it, which is not necessarily the worst thing. All right. Now you'll see how vibrant these can be. Very, very vibrant. Working on some of the ones in the back because they're a little bit darker. I just want to make sure that I don't have my brush too loaded up with water, because then it kind of makes it, dilutes the pigment too much and kind of makes a mess. Just turns into kind of an unruly mess. There we go. All right. I got most of the ones in the back. Do the ones that are more forward. Oh my gosh, this mosquito keeps buzzing in my ear, trying to drive me insane. Stop it. Uh-oh. Ah! Mosquito landed on my head. Ah. Mistletoe is such a complex shape. I actually had no idea how mistletoe grew, like what the pattern that the plant made as it grew, and I had to look it up to draw it, and I was like, wow, that's really fascinating and really complicated. Plants are cool. That one already. That one. This one. I can see areas where I didn't necessarily get as much on there as I should have because I got a little lost in the shape, but that's okay. You may also notice that a lot of these areas don't have a ton of dimension to them when I'm done doing this. But this is, for one, I can go back over and do another layer to add more dimension. That's fine. It won't disturb anything that's underneath it, so I'll just kind of get to build it up. But the other thing is, this is a whole multimedia process. I do usually a watercolor wash for a larger piece like this underneath to kind of set up some of my big flat color areas. But then after I do this stage with the those little yellow terminal buds are so cute. After I do this stage with the water-soluble inks, then I usually do one final pass with colored pencil to kind of pick out some more, like push back some more shadows, pick out highlights, just generally add a little bit extra depth to everything. And then a final layer is usually a layer of gouache to add any bright white highlights. Like just a pass of bright white highlights, places where maybe the white got dulled out a little bit. I'd say that brown, I don't know how well camera's picking it up, but I'd say that brown and pink combo is working pretty well for these berries. Give them some depth and color without going too overboard. It does contrast nicely with the green. Yay! All right, so now we've got mistletoe going on up in the corner there. So now I can go back. Oh, we're only half an hour in. That's pretty good. We're doing pretty good. Getting some stuff done. All right, I've also got this whole great big tree trunk that I already have done, which I should probably work on that and get that locked down for this pass anyway. But first, it's kind of hard to see, but I do have lots of little spots of lichen on here that I want to not have totally lost in the rest of the bark. So I'm going to go ahead and do those first, just so that I can see them and don't lose them. Oh, that worked out pretty well. It's a combination of blue, green, and gray. The lichen is one of those things that'll almost certainly need a gouache pass later to pick out some highlights. That'll just help. But that's like the very last stage. That's the finishing touch stage. And do those shadows so they don't take over the rest of the picture, take over the rest of my little lichen. And I'm kind of doing this in like a little, almost like a stippling pattern, just dot, 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 dot. Kind of try to keep true to the shape where lichen is. Got all those little frills and nodes and everything to it. There we go. Well, it's pretty decent lichen color. I wasn't sure how well that was going to come out. I work so much in black and white, I'm just not confident with color. I flail around and hope for the best. Potatoes. All right, there's my little lichen spots. Nice and blue. Yeah, I'll use this up here. Oh, sorry, shaking the desk. Shaking the desk that the camera's attached to. My bad. Oh yeah, that's gonna need to get darkened up. All right, so the other thing with the water-soluble inks is that since once it is set, is that, and they dry fairly quickly, is that you need to be careful about about maintaining and working with a wet edge, because otherwise you end up with this really harsh line wherever you last worked and let it dry. So I'm going in and filling in all these little spaces first, because once I start over here, like for something like this tree trunk, it's less of a big deal because it's gonna have oh, hey, thanks Matt, appreciate it. Matt's offering encouragement in the chat. something like tree trunk where you're going to have really textured bark, it's not as big a deal if you have a little jagged edge because it's probably just going to get worked into the bark texture anyway. But it is something to be careful about with these when you're working in like a larger area. And actually, a lot of times I'll avoid using them in larger areas and just stick with watercolor for that exact reason. Because watercolor, even if you end up with a dried edge, a lot of times you can work it back in, but not so much with these. Water soluble inks, then they're set. They're set. They're just done. So something else to be cognizant of if you are using them. But look at how rich that color is. It's so nice. And so I'll just keep going back to wherever I have a wet edge. If I have to work in a new area like up here, I'll just keep going back and making sure that stays, like just inching it out a tiny bit to make sure that stays wet. So it takes a little bit of forethought, a little bit of planning to keep it from turning into a mess. See, it's already trying to dry. I already almost ended up with a problem. Now I've got to start trying to work this down in here. If you keep it a little extra wet like that too, that can help. I have that a little bit wetter than I would normally keep what I'm working on, but I also, since it's a larger space, it's less critical that I keep it under as tight of control as I do in these little areas. So it's okay if it's a little bit wetter. I just don't want it to dry. I don't want it to dry and have that nasty jagged edge. It's not what I want. Don't dry. Not allowed to dry it. Don't dry. All right, well, I've managed to get my areas to meet up, so I should be okay at this point, mostly. Now I'm going to try to not get the bark all over this nice skull that's supposed to stay mostly kind of white. That would be bad. Stay wet. Oh, it started to dry. Oh no. Oh no, oh no. Yeah, this darn skeleton that's like the focal point of the whole piece is getting in my way. How dare you? And yeah, you can see where that dried. So got a little bit of a harsh edge there. That's going to have to get worked in with another layer later on down the line. Oops, scoot it up. Get all the way down in here. I can see that someone is leaving comments, but I have to wait until I get through this through this very critical stage before I read them. Sorry, I'll read them in a second. See, that's the other thing you can do is kind of mask it by going back over with a darker wash. Kind of blend it in that way. It only kind of sort of works though. Ideally, you just don't let it happen in the first place, but things happen. Okay, trying to hold this up to where you can still see it. All right. Cool. I got most of the tree. I got a couple of roots back there I've got to do. I'm going to leave all this stuff around the skeleton for right now. I'm going to work on him and the bark right behind him a little later. Not today. Well, not during this stream. Probably later today, just not while I'm streaming. I think we can work that edge in a little more. Not so much. That's a pretty defined thing. Encouragement dispenser booting up. Make it rue the day I never thought it would be dry. Yeah. Obey me, inks. They don't obey. They don't care what I say. They do what they want. All right. One root. Root. Hooray. All right. Tree bark. Phase 1 is complete. Hooray. I can see somebody on my computer is trying to talk to me on Facebook. I'm ignoring them. I'm working. I will talk to you later. It is 1:43. All right, we've got like 15-ish minutes left. What else can we accomplish in that time? I'm going to start working on some of these oak leaves up top here. Keep this somewhat centered and working on these oak leaves up across the top all the way. Well, they kind of frame this whole two sides of the picture as you're like looking down through the trees at the image is the idea. I don't know if it really has that effect, but that's what I was going for. Let's see. So the oak leaves are a nice dark green. This is teal green. Okay, it looks teal on camera. It does not look teal in front of my face. Hold on. So it's also very helpful when you're doing this stuff to have a piece of scrap paper for that looks it looks so teal on camera, but it looks so actually green in front of my face, I promise you. It does not look as blue as the camera makes it seem. It is a little blue, but okay, it's a little blue. Not as blue as it looks to you. It's way more green in person. Okay. Yeah, it's good to have a piece of scrap paper to test in case you have a pencil that calls itself teal green, and you're like, that's not teal. But okay, good to know. It's definitely got a cool tone going on. So do not combine with blue unless you want things very, very blue. Good to know. That's important information. All right, I'm going to start working on these using that. I swear to you, it's not actually blue color. I'm working on some of these leaves. All right. I'll just do like a couple of them in the time we have left. I'm not going to do all of them. I'll just work on this corner right now. One in the back. It's just kind of, it's going to be darker and bluer and ultimately duller, I hope. I might have to hit it with some like orangey brown to make it more dull, because orange and blue are complementary colors, so they're gonna dull each other out, is the hope. All right, I'm gonna take this nice field green again and put it on top there. And I'm getting all over of the field green. These are, the oak leaves are supposed to be pretty dark comparatively to like the mistletoe, which is super bright green. But good to know that that teal green is actually pretty blue. So it's good to do these kinds of tests. Oh, I should make a little more of a shadow right there to show that this leaf is overlapping that leaf. There we go. And let's see, a little bit of brown. What kind of brown do we have here? Willow brown. We'll put in the dark areas here. That in the shadows. Give these leaves a little more depth. And then let's see, orangey brown. I need an orangey brown. Let's see, what do we got here? Baked earth. Baked earth will be nice and orangey brown for that background, those background leaves, to push them back a little bit. Should dull out the green and darken them up. I'll probably do another pass of another dark color to push them back a little more, maybe. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll leave it at that and I'll just bump these up a little more dark color. That's smarter. We'll do my trusty indigo again. Oh yeah, that's looking better. It's looking better already. All right. I think that'll help. Okay. All right. Well, now we can hit that with water and see what happens. We have a few minutes left here, so I'm going to go ahead and do those background leaves first. Ooh, those are still very vibrant. Those are still quite vibrant. That's okay. I don't want them totally sinking into the background. I just don't want them to be quite as vibrant as the ones in the foreground, but we'll see how this goes. I'm going to reiterate to you that I don't actually know what I'm doing with color. I just kind of go. That's okay. It's also worth noting that as dark as this looks right now, it's not that dark because everything on the page is really, really light right now. And we still have a long way to go before we get to the darkest value that is going to be in this final piece. So this is still, we're still not done yet. We still have a ways to go. The darkest values will get added in with the colored pencil. So even though it looks kind of dark right now, it's not actually going to be the darkest thing on the page, not by a long shot. Ooh, that's a little extra wet. Let's reel that back a little bit. Ooh, that's a nice color. It is not as blue as it looks. Curse you, webcam. Why can't you be more color true? Well, actually, to be fair, some of that might be YouTube. It's probably not all my webcam's fault. Some of it is probably YouTube's fault. I feel like YouTube skews very blue. There we go. It's a leaf. It's a pretty leaf. All right. I'm going to hit these shadows first on this leaf, these little shadowed edges, so that they're nice and defined, because remember, those little dark lines are going to stay. Once I let them dry, they're going to stay there. Which is good, because that's what I want. I want that definition. So. You can see even where I'm bumping up against the mistletoe, since it's good and dry, nothing's happening to it. It's not blending into it. Which again, is a good thing. This is what I want. I do have to be careful because I could very easily accidentally cover it with this darker green behind it. So, gotta be careful. But it's not, the mistletoe isn't dissolving into the oak leaf just because I touched it. These little shadows on here pretty crisp. Let them dry for a second so they stay crisp. When that's drying, I can come back over here and work on this leaf. There we go. And you can see I didn't let the shadows dry all the way, so they're blending in a little bit, but they're staying pretty nice and crisp. That was the goal. All right, I want to come back down here while I'm letting those dry a little more. Look on this side of the leaf. All right. Ta-da! Leaves! Yay, leaves. They're really not that blue, I promise you. I swear. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. We got a bunch of this all nice and wetted down for the first pass. We've got the mistletoe and one little corner of oak leaves done for the water soluble ink pass. Hopefully I'll get this done over the next couple of days and I'll be able to post some more process video of it. I've been taking some other videos I've been working along, and the finished piece, hopefully soon. If you don't already like my YouTube channel, you should do that, because for now anyway, it seems that this is where I'm going to be doing these process videos, because I was having some trouble with some other platforms. I may still expand to other platforms again, but we'll see what happens. And of course, you can check out my webcomic Age of Night on ageofnight.com, and I have a Patreon. So that's that's patreon.com/ageofnight. So you should check me out there too if you want to throw money at me for continuing to do stuff like this. Well, thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next week.